Democrats spent last year warning of the dangers of Project 2025. As you might recall, that is the conservative policy agenda that, despite being written independently of President Trump's campaign, the president has spent the first few months in office implementing a lot of those policy items.
Well, now Democrats are once again trying to take a page out of the GOP playbook, and they're reportedly working on their own manifesto dubbed Project 2029. The not very originally named idea is similar to Project 2025. It will be a ready-made policy agenda for the next Democratic presidential nominee. According to an article from the New York Times, the project's architect, former Democratic speechwriter and state party leader Andrei Cherny, the biggest issue that plagued Kamala Harris's campaign last year was not poor messaging, like some in the party seem to think, but rather a lack of policy that wasn't tied to Trump. Cherny told the Times that the way he saw it, President Trump ran on his own ideas, but Harris only ran against Trump's. And he said, quote, "The oldest truism in politics is you can't beat something with nothing."
Also behind the new and improved Democratic playbook are an advisory board on which are Neera Tanden, who served in the Clinton, Obama, and Biden White Houses, and Jake Sullivan, former national security advisor to President Biden. Those two names have led some to be skeptical of the alleged Democratic turnaround. Take a listen.
This would seem to be literally the same old gang trying to retread Democratic policies instead of a new set of tires on a new car.
You look at the debate they're having inside the Democratic Party, and they're saying, on one hand, they're warming to some of these policies that Trump has put out, no tax on tips, for example. On the other hand, some of them think they just have a messaging problem rather than a policy problem. When you have bad policy, it's very difficult to have good messaging. And so when they've had a very difficult time.
I mean, with all due respect to Katie there, I can't imagine any Democratic policy document that she would think was a fantastic idea. She's a fairly conservative commentator. That being said, I'm pretty skeptical of some of the membership of this group myself. It's a very, very Democratic establishment thing. I mean, Jake Sullivan, my criticisms of the Biden administration on the Israel-Gaza question, I have made many times here. There's no need to reiterate them. Neera Tanden is somebody who's very deeply embedded in the Washington DNC, world. I guess not that there's anything wrong with that. It just makes me rather skeptical that there's going to be any revolutionary or even evolutionary change from this.
I think that's right. We ran the headline at the Daily Caller yesterday. Democrats' Project 2029 looks a whole lot like their 2024.
Right.
And I think that really sums it all up. Look, I think actually Cherny was right when he said that it wasn't messaging, it was policy. I think that's actually the first time I've heard a prominent Democratic strategist say that. Which I appreciate. But yes, the advisory board gives me great pause, whether it's Neera Tanden or Jake Sullivan. You also have former New America Foundation president Anne Marie Slaughter, who was the director of policy planning at the State Department under Hillary Clinton.
Even better.
Boo.
Gets better and better.
And then you have Jim Kessler, a founder at Third Way. He was a legislative and policy director for Chuck Schumer.
He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
I'm sure he is.
I'm not going to join you in booing him.
No, I'm booing Schumer.
Okay, fair enough.
And Felicia Wong, former president of the Roosevelt Institute,
Yeah.
served under the Biden and Harris administration as vice chair of the Treasury Advisory Committee on Racial Equity. So yes, very entrenched Democrats, very establishment, have worked across administrations or on the Hill. I don't see some huge policy transformation coming from that group of individuals, as smart and nice as they may be.
Yeah, I wonder actually is the real purpose of this to try to keep the Democratic Party on a sort of center-left track that I think many people consider a bit watery and timid, because we'll talk in a subsequent segment about Mr. Mamdani in New York, who has energized the Democratic voters there and obviously beaten Andrew Cuomo. But there is a conflict going on within the Democratic Party and within left of center circles generally right now between the more DNC type of centrism versus the kind of Bernie AOC more confrontational and insurgent type of strategy. And a lot of these people are very obviously on the establishment side of that question. Now, look, I'm fine to talk about policy and to suggest that there can be policy that is honed there. I do think that part of the problem the Democratic Party has faced has been getting sort of pulled away from economic issues toward more identitarian issues. And so I think that there is opportunity in some of the, really, in my mind, quite basic things. Increase the minimum wage, be better at providing childcare, be more assertive about protecting health insurance, those kind of topics. But I'm not honestly sure. These people seem very ill-placed to come up with some particularly original idea. I think that's the wording. I
think your point about them sort of presenting to the Democratic Party, this is what we're doing, is a good one. I think that probably is a huge part of it, is they want to get ahead of the progressive base, seeing the Mamdani win, going back to the retread of the Bernie critiques, which are all legitimate, and saying, look, we've never had a true progressive run for president under the Democratic banner. This is what we need. They're trying to get out ahead of that, I think, and say, this is the true new vision. It's Project 2029. It's big, it's bold, it's beautiful. It has all of your favorite nonprofit former Biden administration officials. DNC, please help us. I think that's a really good point. I think that probably is what they're trying to do.
I think it is, and I wonder if that more centrist thing is out of step with the times, because one of the issues that I have is that I think Democrats could do a much better job in recognizing a widespread public sentiment that the system is kind of crooked and isn't really working for people. And regardless of the party, when the people leading the party are very much part of that system, then that argument inherently becomes more difficult to make. You mentioned Bernie. I think one of the reasons Bernie has an authenticity in that respect is that not only did the DNC try to sideline him in previous times, but he wasn't by any stretch a member of the party establishment, not even officially a Democrat, and had been a sort of fringe figure in American politics for years before his first presidential run. So that kind of a figure seems to me to have a greater capacity to authentically connect with that sense of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, and I think, the Democrats used to be more skeptical of experts and elites and authority, and they've elevated a lot of those people to be the party bosses, which makes it difficult for them to have that sort of fight the power sentiment that they used to have maybe 30 years ago. When you brought up the point about them calling the system crooked, it made me think of this debate moment with Trump and Hillary in the first time he ran in 2016, which is when he was talking about the system being rigged, and I think it was Hillary who responded, well, how do you know that the system's rigged? And he said, because I use it.
Right.
Ooh.
I know, yeah. There was a whole Dave Chappelle bit about that, about how Trump was telling the truth in that moment. He was giving money to both parties and getting what he wanted, and he was therefore exposing the system.
Up next, why is Stephen A. Smith warning Democrats against Zohran Mamdani? We'll tell you more on Rising.